Here we go. We're holding Chav Zayin Amid Beis. Chav Zayin Amid Beis. We're approximately 12 lines from the wide lines. Tanu Rabban. We just finished a discussion between Rav Eliezer and the Chachamim as to the Chiyuv, as to whether whether there's a din of Lachem, the two psukim of Lukachtem Lachem and Kol Ezrach B'Yisrael, the conversation between Rav Eliezer and the Chachamim. And now we start a new shtickle. The one reflection I want to share from the Siyum, one line. A guy said to me he could go through the whole Makkos in about an hour and a half. That is wild. That is wild. Yes, I also could read fast, but that's a different league. And no, it's not someone that's sitting and learning all day. It's a little bit every day.
I work with that finished Makkos over 100 times.
Exactly.
Kinyan, I think he learns it every Shabbos.
There you go. Oh, so that's what I said. The line I said was, I know stories. They say stories where Moshe Feinstein used to finish Shabbos and Erev in every Shabbos. That was Moshe, but to hear from people finishing a Masechta is wild. And Amir Hashem, it's all about a little bit, and the Chazara, which I appreciate everyone to keep on pushing me. As you know, I'm not very good at that, so I appreciate everyone's chizik. I told actually Rabbi Erlansky, Rabbi Wagner, and Rabbi Newman, that was the line I said to them. I said the Chaver keeps on pushing for more Chazara. That means we're going in the right direction. So, B'siyat Dishmaya, let's get going. Chav Zayin Amid Beis. Tanu Rabbanan. Again, we're about 10 lines from the wide lines. The first word on the line is Kura. Tanu Rabbanan. Maisa b'Rav Eloi. There was a story with Rav Eloi. Shahalach lahakbil penei Rav Eliezer Rabbi. Shahalach, that he went. Lahakbil literally means to accept. Kabbalah's panim. He went to greet the penei, the face of Rav Eliezer Rabbi. Rav Eliezer is Rabbi. Belud, in a place called Lud, Beregel on Yantif. So Rav Eliezer, Rav Eloi, is traveling on Sukkot to go see his Rabbi. Amar Loi. So Rav Eliezer, his Rabbi, says to him, Eloi, referring to him, I guess that was his first name. Eloi, Eincha Mishaise Regel. You are not one that is shoives, that rests on Yontif? What are you doing? Why aren't you home with your wife? Not such a gishmak way to be greeted by the Rebbe. He just traveled, he's going to see his Rebbe, and his Rebbe says, what are you doing here? Why aren't you home with your wife? Shehaya Rebbe Eliezer Oimer. So you got to know your Rebbe's opinions. Never do the one thing that he doesn't hold of, right? Shai Rabbi Eliezer Oimer. Rabbi Eliezer would say, Mishabeach ani. I praise es ha'atzlonim, those who are lazy. Shein yoitzim mibateim beregel. I think we could all get this one. They don't leave their house in Yontif. Why? What's so great? Tichsev v'samachto ato beisecha. You should rejoice, you and your household. So an atzel, quote unquote, one who spends all sukkahs home, one who spends all time in the sukkah, hanging out and eating and drinking and schmoozing with his family, that is the best. And of course, we know stories of incredible tzaddikim and gedalim that literally wouldn't leave the sukkah for one moment. So over here we have Rav Eloi that goes to travel to visit his Rebbe, Rav Eliezer, and he gets there and he's greeted with his Rebbe telling him, what are you doing here? Get out of here. Why aren't you home with your wife? You should rejoice, you and your household. End of story for now. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Eini, is that really true? Is it true that on Sukkot you're supposed to stay home with your wife and not go visit your Rebbe? Ve'amar Rabbi Yitzchak. But Rabbi Yitzchak says, Minayin, how do you know? Shechayiv adam lahakbel b'nei rabbi beregel. How do you know that one is obligated? He is chayiv to accept his Rebbe's face to greet his Rebbe beregel on Yontif. How do you know? Shenemar, says the Pasuk in Malachim, Ma'adua atoy lecha seilav hayoim. Why are you going today? Lo chodesh, lo Shabbos. Why are you coming? This was a story in Navi that Isha Shunamis is coming to Elisha Hanavi, and the question that he asked was, what are you coming today? It's not Shabbos, it's not Rosh Chodesh. So why are you coming to visit your Rebbe Elisha? What's the obvious inference? Michlal. What do we see from this story, from the way that he responded? It's not Rosh Chodesh. It's not Shabbos. Michlal. From here we see Diber Chodesh v'Shabbos. That if it was Rosh Chodesh, if it was Shabbos, then Mechayiv Inish, a person is obligated to greet the Rebbe. So what's going on? Ask the Gemara. We have a blatant stira. Rav Eliezer just said to Rav Eloi, what are you doing here? Get home. But we know it's not true. We know that one does indeed have an obligation to greet his Rebbe on Rosh Chodesh, on Shabbos. We're assuming now Yom Tov as well. So what is going on over here? Says the Gemara, Lo Yikasho. There's no question. What's the answer? When did Rav Yitzchak, when did the Brisa teach us that you have to go visit your Rebbe? The azil, that you go, va'asi, and you come back, biyoimei, on the same day. The Rebbe's in town. The Rebbe, you have to go travel. So you travel an hour there. You say Shalom Aleichem Rav. And then you travel back home. What was the story with Rav Eliezer and Rav Eloi? He had to travel far out. It was a journey. And he left his wife home. And he wasn't going to be home to be misameach with his family, to rejoice with his family. And that's when one does not have an obligation. So fascinating Gemara that we're coming out with, that in reality, both answers were correct. Is there an obligation of one to see his Rebbe on Yom Tov? The answer is yes. Is there an obligation of one to stay home the whole time and spend it with his wife and family? The answer is yes. How do you have those two things? Answers the Gemara. It depends how close the Rebbe is. If the Rebbe is close enough, they can go see the Rebbe and come back home. Givaldik. You get your mitzvah of being Makabel B'nai Rabbi. You get your mitzvah of seeing your Rebbe. And Givaldik. You got home and you're spending time with your wife and family. But if your Rebbe's in the next town over and therefore it takes too long, then there is no obligation. Let's do one more story. Tanu Rabbanon. Maisa. We're 2 lines from the white lines. Maisa Rav Eliezer. We have a story with Rav Eliezer. Sheshavas beGalil ha'elyoin. That he spent Shabbos in Galil Elyoin, name of Upper Galil. Besukkah shel Rav Yochanan b'Rav Eloi. In the Sukkah of Yochanan b'Rav Eloi. B'Keisari in Keisaria. Va'amri la, and some say that it wasn't in Keisari, but b'Keisari Yoin, a different place. Okay. So they're sitting there on Sukkot, and all of a sudden the sun rays start beaming in. The schama, the sun, reaches the Sukkah. Amar loi. So Yochanan b'Rav Eloi tells Rabbi Eliezer, again, Rabbi Eliezer is visiting. So the Balabas, Yochanan b'Rav Eloi, turns to Rabbi Eliezer and says, they're sitting in the Sukkah at either Kesari or Kesari Yoin, and the sun comes and is beaming down on them, and he says, Mahu she'efrois aleho sadin. What is the halacha she'efrois? I could spread out aleha, on it, on the Sukkah, sadin, on a sheet. It's too sunny. Am I allowed to go and spread over a sheet over the Sukkah or not? So Amar Lai, Rav Eliezer responds, Ein lecha kol shevet v'shevet mi Yisrael, shlohamid mimenu shofet. Every shevet, every tribe in Klal Yisrael has their shofet, has their judge. So what's basically the answer? He said to him, I don't want to answer your question. Interesting answer. The story continues. That's when the sun hits the sukkah a little bit. The meal elapses and the sun's moving. And now the sun reaches to half of the sukkah. So Yochanan Rav Eloi v'Amar Loi. So he says again to Rav Eliezer, can I spread a sheet over the sukkah? And again, Rav Eliezer responds, Amar Loi, Ein l'cha kol sheva v'sheva Yisrael, there is no tribe in Klal Yisrael, Shayatzu menu Nevi'im, that doesn't have Nevi'im, v'sheva Yehuda ben Yamin, and even Shevet Yehuda and Binyamin, who do not have Nevi'im, Hamidu Malachim, Al Pi Nevi'im, by the Nevi'im. Again, a statement by Rav Eliezer saying, I don't want to answer your question. That was time number 2. Time number 3. Again, the sun keeps on traveling. It started a little bit, it went halfway, and now the sun is where? By the feet. The raglov shel Rav Eliezer, of Rav Eliezer. Natal Yochanan, this time he didn't ask. Yochanan takes sadin a sheep, upeiras aleha, and spreads it over the sukkah. Why? Because Rav Eliezer is being hit by the sun. Hivshil Rav Eliezer talisay lachayrav. Rav Eliezer takes his talis and throws it behind him. V'yatza, and he leaves the sukkah. End of story. We're going to leave a little bit of a cliffhanger. Time number 1, he didn't answer. Time number 2, he didn't answer. Time number 3, he took matters into his own hands. And what happened? Shtickle backfired. Rav Eliezer takes his towels, whips it over his shoulder, and says, Akut Yom Tif, and leaves the sukkah.
Didn't we learn if there's more sun than shade, it's possible?
That's part of what's going on over here. We have to figure out. Mirta Hashem, we're going to pick it up from here tomorrow, where we'll delve further into the story to figuring out what did Rav Eliezer hold, what did Yochanan Rav Eloi hold, etc., etc. Chevra, even though we're only a few of us, try to do at least